All right, starting lesson 1.6, using the midpoint formula. Now, a midpoint, is a point on a segment that bisects. All right, in other words, that means it cuts it in half. All right, now here we have the midpoint formula. Right here, okay? So you're given 2 points, and you want to figure out what this blue point is, which is the midpoint. So essentially, all you're doing is you're taking the x values, you're adding them up and dividing by 2. Essentially, you're just figuring out the average. You're taking 2 values and you're finding out what's right in between. And then you're doing the same thing with the y values. All right, you're adding them up and dividing by 2. You're finding the average. You're finding the value directly in between. All right, and that gives you the midpoint formula. So it's not a difficult formula to memorize if you just know that you're finding the average of the y values and you're finding the average of the x values, which means you're dividing the sum by 2. So example 1, find the coordinates of the midpoint of a segment with the given endpoints. So here we have x1, y1, x2, y2. All right, so using the midpoint formula, I'm going to have 1 plus 3 divided by 2, and then I'm going to have 7 plus negative 1 divided by 2. All right, so then we have the 4 divided by 2, then we have 6 divided by 2, because positive and negative is a negative, so 7 minus 1. And then we end up with the midpoint, which is 2, 3. Done. All right, find the coordinates of the midpoint of AB with the given endpoints. All right, here we have x1, y1. Here we have x2, y2. All right, so we end up with x1, which is negative 6, plus x2, which is 2, divided by 2. Then we have y1, which is 5, plus y2, which is negative 4. We divide this by 2. So I end up with negative 4 divided by 2. And then I have 1 divided by 2. So I end up with negative 2 and a half. Okay, you can have fractions for either the x value or the y value, or both, when working with the midpoint. All right, don't freak out when you see fractions. All right, example 2, find the coordinates of the other endpoint. The other endpoint of the segment AB with the given endpoint and midpoint. All right, so we're going to have to work backwards a little. So here they already give us the midpoint, 0, 3. And then I'm going to apply the midpoint formula. So this is my x1, y1. I'm trying to figure out my x2 and my y2. All right, so my x1 is negative 8. Then I have plus x sub 2 divided by 2. Then I have negative 1 plus y sub 2 over 2. And just to be clear, when you're describing this, this is called x sub 2, and this is called y sub 2. These little numbers here are known as subscripts. Okay? So that's x sub 2, and that's y sub 2. That's how you describe those values. All right, so now what do? I need to figure out x sub 2. Well, I know that this here, 0, is equal to this portion for the midpoint formula that we applied. So I have negative 8 plus x sub 2 over 2 equals 0. All right, now I could solve for x sub 2. So I end up with, multiply by 2 on both sides. I get rid of the fraction. So I get negative 8 plus x sub 2 equals 0. Add 8, and x sub 2 is equal to 8. All right, then I want to figure out my y sub 2, so I know 3 is equal to this portion for the midpoint formula. So let's set up another equation. Negative 1 plus y sub 2 over 2 is equal to 3. All right, let's isolate y sub 2. These cancel. Add 1, and I get y sub 2 is equal to 7. All right, so my b value, my b point, The x and y values are 8 and 7. Done. All right, let's do it one more time to make sure you understand this concept. All right, so here they give me an endpoint. Here they give me a midpoint. We're doing the same thing as before. So here's my midpoint, 3 negative a half. And that's equal to, all right, that's my x1, y1 here. So I have 2 plus x sub 2 over 2. And then I have negative 3 plus y sub 2 over 2. All right. So 3 is equal to this portion of the midpoint formula. So I have 2 plus x sub 2 over 2 equals 3. Multiply by 2 on both sides. I have 2 plus x sub 2 equals 6. Subtract 2. X sub 2 is equal to 4. Alrighty. And now I'm going to have negative 3 plus y sub 2 over 2 is equal to negative a half. Alright, so I'll multiply by 2 on both sides. Cancels out on both sides. So I have negative 3 plus y sub 2 is equal to negative 1. I add 3. And y sub 2 is equal to 2. So for my endpoint B, the x and y values are 4, 2. All right, that's all there is to this lesson. If you have any questions, make sure to ask for help. All right, begin the assignment.